There's a big red house on a hill in the town of Kolding. Some say it's always been there. Others say it magically appeared during a blizzard. And some are convinced that they've seen it being built. Sally Ann wasn't paying much attention to what older folks in town were talking about. She mostly focused on her studies and needed to find some way of financing them. The government would help out, but studying architecture wasn't cheap, and she needed a little extra for traveling and materials. She got in contact with the owners of the house, who weren't around much, especially by the end of the week, and had a house full of kids who weren't related but for some reason shared a very strong bond. And instead of chasing everyone out on a Friday night, the owners had been looking for someone to be there until Saturday morning would come. She wasn't in for a rough start. Only 2 of the kids were home. "I believe I can cook you guys something decent for dinner," said Sally, "and then we could watch a movie. We could also go get some candy for when we are watching the movie." The kids tried to be nice to Sally. They'd been told that they should always be open to whatever the local traditions were. But Sally's suggestions kept creating such a heavy burden that they couldn't quite hide their disappointment. "All right," said Sally. "Just tell me exactly what you guys would like to do." "We'd like to bake 100 pancakes and then go to the airport and collect old junk from airplanes." "Old junk," said Sally. "Yeah," said the kids. "We know Craig. He's a mechanic out there. And we're allowed to come by and take a few parts from airplanes that are going to the scrapyard." "Okay," said Sally, "so if I call this Craig right now, he's going to make sure this becomes possible?" "Yes," said the kids. Sally Ann called the airport, and there was a person out there called Craig. He also confirmed that unless the night got very busy, the kids could visit the hangar and take with them the parts they needed. "Thank you," said Sally. She was authorized to drive a moving vehicle with the kids in it, but she said, "I'm a student. I don't have a car." "We've got a car," said the kids. "All right," said Sally. "And how do we bake 100 pancakes before the night is over?" "Well, use 10 frying pans," said the kids. They were in the living room as Sally found her way around the kitchen and started cooking. The frying pans were hot and noisy, and she couldn't quite figure out what the kids were doing, but they seemed to be sending some kind of message in which the privilege of having access to fresh strawberries seemed very important. They met Craig in the airport, and the kids started looking for good pieces. Every time they found something of value, they'd always check with Craig. "Are they building something out of these pieces?" asked Sally. "Yes," said Craig. "I'm not quite sure what they're building. We don't usually allow kids to come here, but there are some who are very interested in engineering, and some of them become very good flight mechanics in the future." Yeah, all right," said Sally. "By the way," said Craig, "there's a Boeing 747 arriving here in the airport later tonight, and I think Raven and Troy and Toby and some of the other kids from the house are going to be on that plane." "All right," said Sally. The kids continued looking for scrap in the hangar, while Sally took a walk in the terminal. There wasn't much going on there at the time. She thought about why the kids hadn't told her that the others were coming. Maybe they didn't say anything because they didn't want their new nanny to feel that she wasn't doing her job well enough. The plane arrived and more inhabitants of the big red house showed up. They all went back to town and didn't seem to have any sleep to catch up on. Raven and Troy started to play music while all the kids seemed to be very concerned with their toys. They all had some kind of toy, and they spent a lot of time testing it and talking about it. Sally Ann left the red house on the hill. She went to a local bar hoping to meet some friends. And when they finally arrived, they were curious to know what she'd been doing all night. And she tried to explain what the new job was like. But it wasn't easy.